Hello and welcome to yet another video, and in this video I have a very fun and interesting camera to share with you guys. It's this camera right here. It's the Olympus E300. Now this camera has been out for quite a while now, I know, but it's been a camera that I personally find very fun to use. Of course, it's not the latest and the greatest out there, but if you're just looking for a very fun camera to use, I would still highly recommend this one. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the Olympus E300, now this camera came out way back in 2005, I believe, or around that time period, I'm not sure anymore. But despite its age, it's still a very fun camera to use, and you might kind of like get a theme a little bit that I've been, into Olympus cameras lately, because not long ago I've done a video on this camera, which is another great camera to use really. But this camera is also a very nice camera to use and also has some very interesting technology built in here that I will be discussing about very soon. And talking about discussing very soon, just as usual, I'll be dividing this video into 3 different sections. I'll be dividing into the ergonomics and the operational side of this camera, and then leading into the image quality, and then into the conclusion of this camera, why I recommend it and why I don't really recommend it. So let's first start with the ergonomics and the operational side of things. Well, this camera feels really nice in the hands, and it's actually quite big. So looking at it, it also can be a full frame camera, or it could also be, like an APS-C size camera, but it's actually a 4/3 camera. Despite the size, it actually feels very nice, because some cameras at this kind of size and at this kind of form factor, it can feel just like holding a brick. But this one, the grip is very nice, the rubber texture, everything, and even the attention to detail on this particular indent right here. It's also very, very nice, because it just adds that extra grip onto the grip. So yeah, and a lot of the controls are pretty much at your fingertips, like that. Sadly, the flash doesn't really flip backwards to just reflect the flash onto the ceiling or anything. So yeah, that's kind of like a thought they could have actually put in, but no, they didn't. But the build quality is actually quite nice. It does feel a little bit plasticky on this side of the camera, but on this side it actually feels very solidly built. So that's quite nice. Looking on the back, there is that 1.8-inch screen, which is actually pretty much good enough if you're just viewing your images, just to see your composition, your basic colors if they're there, but it's nothing to really judge your proper exposure or judge your proper color accuracy. That you have to do at home. Otherwise, all the button layouts and everything, they're all very simple. This is a very old camera, so all of the buttons here are pretty much the essential buttons that you will need, which is actually pretty good, because that means you don't have to take your eyes away from the scenes that often just to access your crucial settings. That being said, if you do have to get access into the menu system, the menu is actually very well organized as well. And just like with any other Olympus cameras, I love the text on here, because with an older screen comes with a lower brightness and not as crisp display as more modern cameras, or even the cameras from, let's say, 10 years ago. So having a really nice fonts in the menu system really helps a lot with this particular camera as well. So that's something that I personally really appreciate. I also love how the graphics interface kind of display on here, like certain warning system, like when you open the actual flap or door right here, it also shows a little diagram, a little image on here that it's open. So I really love that attention to detail. Yeah, but anyway, opening this port, you will only find one particular card slot, which is the CF card. So this camera takes CF cards, which is actually quite nice, because I love CF cards. I don't like SD cards. They fail a lot of times, in my opinion, in my experience actually. So yeah. Now this camera is a 4/3 camera, which is its own kind of advantage and also disadvantage as well. I'll discuss that more later into the conclusion. But if you, once you unmount the lens, you will see that the mirror is very interesting. The mechanism is actually sideways. That's actually because there's no hump up here for a prism. There are just actually a lot of mirrors inside, going to the side and then up to this particular viewfinder up here. So yeah, that is something that is very unique to this camera, and I believe it's pretty much the only camera that I know that uses this mechanism, and it's actually quite interesting to actually see that. So yeah, but talking about the mirror flipping, this camera does 2.5 frames per second, but with the actual autofocusing system, I wouldn't really recommend using it at burst mode all the time because the autofocusing system is not that accurate, and a lot of times it thinks it's in focus, but it's just a hair in focus, like just a hair bit more, then it'll be in focus. So be careful of that, and you will encounter that a lot of times, whether it's in high contrast situations or in low light or almost in perfect lighting. It will have those problems as well. So just, you know, be aware of that. Just because it's confirmed that it's in focus does not always mean it's in focus. Just double, at least triple focus it, just to make sure that it's really in focus. And there are only 3 focusing points in this particular camera. That being said, if you're just doing some basic photography or general field of photography, it is definitely more than enough to cover what you're going to be shooting in those basic fields. So yeah, there is that. But of course, it's not a fast camera by any means, so it's one of those cameras that you really have to take your time, be patient with it, and also just know its limitation to be able to enjoy it. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, the shutter sound on this camera is actually quite nice. I love the shutter sound. But yeah, that's about that. But the viewfinder itself, it's actually a very interesting viewfinder because it reminds you of those older DSLRs where there's a little circle of split screen, whether if something's in focus or not. If something is in focus, then the screen will be aligning with each other in the middle, and then the image will look sharp. But otherwise, the whole viewfinder in here, you will have to get used to it. If you're coming from an older DSLR, so an older SLR system from the film era, you will feel right at home. But if you're coming from a DSLR system, it's a viewfinder that you really have to get used to because it is definitely very dark, and a lot of times it's also hard to frame your images properly because you have to get used to the viewfinder in here. But unlike the smaller but more advanced entry-level DSLRs from Olympus, it doesn't feel like you're looking through a tunnel. So with the, let's say the E500, the E510, the E420, the E410, things like that, you feel like you're looking through a tunnel, whereas this one, it still feels normal, assuming you are already used to the circular kind of viewfinder frame inside. So yeah, there is that. This camera, despite its age, it actually has very low battery consumption simply because it is still a DSLR. There's no live view feature in here, at least I'm not aware of that. But yeah, the battery is actually quite big and decent, and you know, I've been using this battery for already almost 2 weeks and it's still going very strong. And I haven't charged it. I do have a spare battery, but I haven't really got a chance to use that either because using DSLR, it's a very low consumption power battery, if that makes sense. So with mirrorless cameras like the A7 IV that's filming me, the live view is always on. If I look through the viewfinder, that's also an electronical viewfinder. With this, there's no live view. You look through here. The only time that's, you know, the power is being used is when you try to meter for the light, press half focus just to activate the focus system in the lens, and then press the shutter, and then another electrical consumption would be the shutter curtain, and then it stores the image into the card. So it's not really power hungry kind of camera. And also, just a side note, this camera oddly reminds me of one of my favorite cameras as well. It's my GFX 50R. It looks a lot like this rangefinder style camera. It's not a rangefinder, it's just a rangefinder style camera. But yeah, but this actually feels much better than my GFX 50R. This is not only heavy, but the grip doesn't feel as comfortable as this grip right here. So there's that. But yeah, otherwise now into the image quality. It has an 8 megapixel sensor. It's a Kodak made CCD sensor, which is actually quite interesting. Now, of course, just because the sensor is produced by certain manufacturers doesn't really translate to the whole image quality because just like any other brands, they will bake their own color profile, color science, color profile, everything in there. And Olympus has done a very nice job of, you know, doing very nice color profile into this camera. The color accuracy is not always there, but the color profile is very nice. I love how smooth, but also how very gentle, if that makes sense, the colors are coming out of the sensor. And I really also like the color depth, the color reproduction out of the sensor as well. Despite the age, you will still be able to do quite a bit out of the colors from this camera and also out of the file as well, assuming if you shoot in RAW, which I do. Yeah, just keep in mind that you cannot really push a lot because it's not that robust, but it is robust to a certain extent. And if you're just focusing on, you know, posting your images online, let's say on your Facebook, Instagram, what have you, then the image quality is definitely more than good enough for those platforms. And also if you just want to print, let's say A4, A3 size images, sometimes A2 size images, it's also going to render really nice detail images on those print sizes as well. So that's actually quite nice. And of course, just like any with older sensors, just be careful of moire aliasing. Don't photograph too much of superfine patterns and details. Otherwise, you will have your moire and aliasing kind of effect very easily. And of course, I would not use it any higher than ISO 200. Even with ISO 200 in super contrasty environment, I'm already seeing a lot of noise, a lot of colored noise on the images. That being said, if you're into like nostalgic digital look that gives you somewhat of like a film vibe, this camera is still a very nice camera to look at because it does give you that kind of characteristics as well. So yeah, there's that. Otherwise, there's not much to say. If you know your way around the limitations of this camera, you will be able to still produce extremely good images with this particular camera with the nostalgic digital characteristics as well. So now leading on to the conclusion. Well, I can't really say much. Let me first start with the not so good points, why I don't recommend it. Well, the price, first of all, if you're just looking for good value on old system cameras, on older DSLRs to, you know, get like the best image quality out of them for under 100 euros. There are so many other options out there. The 500D, the 550D from Canon, you will find better lenses for a much lower price for those systems, and it comes with bigger sensors as well than this camera. But if you're looking for, you know, like unique feeling, unique operational side of things out of older DSLR, then this is something to look for, of course. And also the lens system from this particular system is not that much available. And if you do find certain lenses that you might like, there's also this problem that it might be a little bit too expensive as well because there aren't a lot of supplies. Well, there weren't a lot of supplies when, you know, the system was introduced. So there is that as well. So often you will only find the kit lenses or some other basic zoom lenses which are very affordable from this particular system, but certain primes or certain unique zoom lenses, it will probably cost a lot depending on where you live. At least where I live, it's ridiculous. It's best if you just look at other systems like the Canon, the Nikon system, the Pentax system. You will still find cheaper overall setup for those lenses, for those system, and you will still be able to get the most out of the sensor for the price. But if you just want to have a unique price, well, you need unique experience and don't mind too much of the price, then this is still the way to go. But yeah, I would still highly recommend it if you, again, just want to look for that nostalgic kind of Kodak CCD sensor experience. This is a nice one to go because despite the price, it's still under 150 euros. I got this for around 100 euros with the kit lens. It's not a lot, but in the same time, it's also quite expensive compared to what you could find for that amount of price. But it's definitely worth looking for it because the colors, the operational side of things of this camera, it's actually very nice. It's a camera that, you know, you have to try it to be able to feel how unique and how fun it is to use this camera. There are some frustrations with the light metering, the accuracy of it, the color. Sometimes it's just too much flaring from the sensor as well, so just be aware of that. But yeah, otherwise it's a very fun camera to use that I would really recommend. And I can't really come up with more unique or better words for it, or less cliche, because it's a really fun camera to use and experiment with. But yeah, I hope this video actually helped some of you guys out there a little bit, if not a lot, then a little. If you need a free photography guidebook, and also if you just want to have a look at some of my photography courses, the links are down in the description section below. Just click and download. Otherwise, if you have anything to share, any stories to share, any suggestions, any questions, feel free to also comment down in the comment section down below. Otherwise, I thank you all very much for watching. Stay safe, have fun shooting. Till next time, bye for now.